the idea of the super architect, structural engineer, Leonardo da Vinci types doesn't exist. Buildings are created with thousands of people all working together, from cable pullers to project managers to the people, running the cranes. You're all an integrated part of a whole. They're massive constructions, and the only reason we can work together to produce them is because we're collaborating. So if we improve that collaboration, we can produce a better outcome.
In education, sometimes, or at least in my university, there was this kind of joint architecture engineering module where you get to kind of exchange ideas and understand what's important to the other discipline. And perhaps, in your view, would it be helpful to have a similar thing with like engineers and BIM? Because you need to understand how each other work, because you're creating a product ultimately together, right? That's what you're delivering. Do you think that there should be some more integrated education or training?
100%. I think it works quite differently in the other disciplines within our industries. Take architecture, for example. It's generally you enter the industry as part 1 to part 2 to part 3, which are fully fledged. And when you start in an industry, you're essentially the equivalent of a technician or architectural technologist, and you were producing the drawings, you were producing the details, you were modeling the models. And as you progress, you oversee wider and wider bits of that practice. And architecture is massively wide. I mean, they are the lead consultant, the lead coordinators of every project we do. And it's closer to project management than I guess a lot of people maybe believe when they're earlier on in their careers. And as they progress through, they leave those kind of modeling and technologist skills behind and progress into more wide strategic based thinking. When we look at structure, it's very much there's two streams. You have the technician's role and you have the engineer's role. Separate education systems. Engineering is a degree, often a master's, and technician is traditionally a qualification, a HND. And as time has gone on, with the advent of BIM being more about data structures than raw production of drawings and models, that has kind of blurred the line somewhat. When we have those two streams, you cannot often feel like you're two sides of the fence, and that's not great for working together on a project, obviously. But you also struggle with communication then. And I think most of the time when we struggle in communication, it results in a poorer product in the outcome. There have been countless times where I've been introduced to a project by being emailed a set of markups and asked can you just CAD this up, please? And that's your project, welcome. Whereas talking them through projects, integrating CAD technicians as part of a team, but also on the other side, bringing the engineers into the model as well. Let's go through this on screen. Let's see what we can work out that's a little bit more efficient. Technicians are generally going to be more in the model than the engineers are. So we might spot things that the engineers may not have considered, especially as we go from 2D to 3D, as often the case when engineers are looking at scheming up a building. They may not have considered certain constraints or aspects when you just rotate the view slightly.
What I'm understanding from what you've just described is like, okay, within a design office, you've got engineers and technicians, and we're just talking the structural discipline for now. And we both have a common value, and I guess that value is a depiction of what the truth is, I guess. And then, so we have to come together to kind of bring our skills to optimize this value that's between us, and we're both equal members of the project team.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I guess what I would call that is our single source of truth, our design truth. And we cover this a lot of, especially when we're working with existing buildings. Contrary to popular belief, structural engineers don't have X-ray specs that can look through a building and see what lies beneath and how the bones are holding it together. However, we can infer quite a lot. Now, that picture may not be 100% accurate to reality, but we have to, as a group, as a team, be able to put our finger down and say, this is what we believe this is to be at the moment, and we are going to work on this basis, and that's your design truth. As soon as you have multiple streams evolving at the same time, those streams are going to multiply and multiply and multiply. And by the time you submit for tender, you have disparate information and you don't have a single source of truth, and there's no thread of information that flows through.